Rising up from the ashes before the snow flies, time is of the essence for Willow to rebuild from the sockeye wildfire.
It burnt all the supports out that way, saved this, and it saved the walk-in freezer. I will never be more grateful.
Gratitude and loss. Iditarod musher Dee Dee John Rowe is forced to find her new frontier after losing almost everything.
Sponsorship for Frontiers with Rhonda McBride is provided by Kupik Corporation and Spinard Builders Supply. Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers, with challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief the best is yet to come, bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to our program. Sometimes we find frontiers, sometimes they find us. In Willow, there was no choice. On Sunday, June 14th, a wildfire raced through the community, devouring thousands of acres and 55 homes, tearing through the heart of Alaska's dog mushing capital. Now, that was only 4 months ago when some families wondered if it was even possible to rise up from the ashes. With help from volunteers and sheer grit and determination, many of those who lost their homes have come a long way in such a short time. But with winter bearing down, the home stretch is still not in sight.
It's like a huge jigsaw puzzle.
It's a puzzle Bob Schlupak has no choice but to figure out. His family lost their home and everything they owned. Bob's wife, Jan Steves, can't be here right now. She's down in the lower 48 caring for her father. On the day of the fire, she was in Seattle mourning the loss of her son.
If you look at Jan's video, it's very striking.
I don't know what to say. I've seen the pictures, but I'm seeing it in person.
A friend documented Jan's first look at the destruction right after the fire.
Oh. This is our house. Bob's snow machine that he groomed all the trails with.
An Alaskan dog mushing dream devoured by flames.
Believe it or not, we have a lot to be grateful for.
On top of that, another painful truth.
Oh my gosh.
This family had no insurance.
This is a project of blood, sweat, tears, and love.
The materials and much of the labor have been donated thanks to the Willow Recovery Project.
We have families that have no resources whatsoever.
Which Krista Fee got rolling on the first day of the fire.
It was devastation, absolute, overwhelming, complete devastation. Even strong people sometimes need help. They need someone to tell them that it's going to be okay and to take the step forward that it's going to take to get them back up.
We are at 10 o'clock and want to get rolling here.
The group, made up of a variety of representatives from relief organizations, churches, and community groups, meets every Tuesday at the Willow Methodist Church.
It still needs windows and doors, and before I can move it, I need 80 yards of gravel and a bobcat.
Krista keeps track of the needs, and the group tries to find ways to meet them.
A total Willow Recovery Team funds available is $62,359.91.
One of the biggest challenges, steering the cash and donations to the right place at the right time.
All I know is there's still a chainsaw sitting in my office that hasn't been used. So.
There's no cookie-cutter approach to address all the requests, like what to do with 22 burned-out cars that this property owner once used for parts, now a hazard. Despite all of the challenges, collaboration from churches of different denominations seems to be Willow's saving grace.
If we get into certain areas of theology or conversation or even how we practice our faith, we're not going to agree. and we know that, and there are differences. But when it comes to simply loving our neighbors, there's very little discussion that goes into it.
And the community followed their lead. Some families loaned out their motorhomes for temporary shelter, even gifted them. Other volunteers mobilized to clear the property. What is it like to have to clear this much debris? It seems overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. It takes a lot of people and a lot of equipment. And we need this still to happen at probably 30 more properties.
Since the sockeye fire, Bob has subsisted on very little sleep. But there's no way he could have done this job alone.
We had a work party from Texas. We had a work party from Tennessee. There was a couple that was here pretty much all summer from North Carolina.
Bob says it's impossible to repay such generosity.
How do you quantify goodness in people's hearts to help? I don't know how to do that.
It's easy to see how the power of goodness has made all the difference.
We've come a long ways from where we started, but there's a long ways to go.
For now, the scent of scorched land lingers, and winter is in the air. The Willow Recovery Project is making a big push for volunteers over the next few weeks. We'll tell you how you can help later in our program. So, what about the Anchorage couple charged with starting the sockeye wildfire? Amy DeWitt and Greg Immig are still waiting for a trial date. Court records show a pre-trial conference set for December 3rd. The two are accused of leaving a pile of burning debris on their property near Willow, which eventually blackened more than 7,000 acres and caused more than $8 million in damages. Up next, we hear from two people on the front lines helping Willow move on from the fire, and we check in with Dee Dee Johnrow.
When I'm running dogs, I'm not grieving my mom. When I'm running dogs, I'm not grieving all the stuff I've lost.
Leaving the hardships behind and moving ahead on the comeback trail. Easier said than done.
I just want cremation.
Cremation specialists in Alaska.
Can I have a service before cremation?
Our staff is committed to serving your needs.
I just want something basic. The simpler, the better.
Specializing in simple cremations. Whatever your reasons are for choosing cremation, call Cremation Society of Alaska 277-2777 or in the Valley 373-8627 and on the web at alaskacremation.com.
At Spinard Builder Supply, we know it takes a lot of pieces to get the perfect look. That's why we have design centers in every store to personalize the most important rooms in your home. We'll help you select cabinets, countertops, and fixtures that fit your style. So all you have to worry about is, what shade of lipstick goes with that eyeshadow? Spinard Builder Supply. Building for life.
Visit our design experts today and receive 20% off all Kohler special order faucets and fixtures now through October 31st.
We have a story of 27 families that put 18 months of their lives into building a village, a home for themselves and their future. Our Inupiaq culture goes back thousands of years, carried by a strong sense of community. Our relationship with our natural surroundings is at the heart of our culture. By investing in future generations through development that is balanced with the love of our land, the Kupi Corporation brings together traditions of the past with visions of the future.
So what would you do with an extra 2 minutes? Hit the snooze button? That sounds good. 2 more minutes in the shower? Can't blame you. Maybe send an extra photo of Mr. Tinkles to your quilting club. Well, at KTVA 11 News, we're giving you 2 more minutes of news and information in every newscast. More news. Now that's 2 minutes well spent. KTVA 11 News. Real news, real people.
Dee Dee Johnrow may not have won the Iditarod, but she's the champion of the comeback trail. And she's had some tough ones, her battle against breast cancer, the death of her mother this summer, and now it's a race against time to rise up from the ashes of this summer's fire and run yet another Iditarod.
This is all new grass.
Planted by volunteers from the University of Alaska Anchorage's cross-country team.
A lot of them that were farm background.
An amazing transformation when compared to just after the fire.
That was our famous roadhouse. We built that. We could put 42 dogs inside in comfort in the middle of the winter.
Mike Johnroe watched their homestead, along with his wife's Iditarod empire, go up in smoke.
How much can a woman stand?
I don't know. I hope more than this.
As it turns out, a lot more.
We watch you every year.
Thank you.
Not long after she signed up for the 2016 Iditarod with her mother, she lost her to breast cancer.
How many pounds do you think you lost?
Probably at least 20. But I tell you what, Rhonda, Mike has too.
Dee Dee may be thinner, but determined as ever to tackle the comeback trail, but not quite in the style she's accustomed to. The matching parkas and booties, all top of the line, were lost in the fire.
All of these are donated.
Some in need of a little TLC, but Dee Dee is glad to have them just the same.
But you know, that was nice of people to do that.
Dee Dee works out of the only building that survived the fire. You can still see the scorch marks.
Whee!
Since the fire, Dee Dee has been jogging with her lead dogs.
He's done a lot of jogging with me this summer.
This is the first time she's been able to take the team out on a training run.
Violet, come here.
She's hoping to size them up for a new set of harnesses.
It doesn't fit you. It doesn't fit the little fat girl.
She's also wondering how much new gear she can afford. Shell recently notified her that there were no guarantees it would continue sponsoring her after December.
They have gone above and beyond what a sponsor does. They've been a friend.
Dee Dee says Shell employees even brought food when her mom died.
Oh, there's a lot of people losing jobs. It's going to shake through the entire economy of Alaska, and I'm part of that. You know, any other year, I would have had stuff in reserve.
With all of the setbacks, the challenges of rebuilding her home.
This is a doggy bath.
Why not take a break from the Iditarod?
I don't want to take a break. The only fun thing I've got going on in my life are the running the dogs. All the other stuff is just tough. And why should I give up the one fun thing?
And what's fun for Dee Dee is fun for the dog. Even Lucy, an old rescue dog, is checking out the scene.
Straight ahead.
Off they go, past stands of burned-out spruce.
All right. When I'm running dogs, I'm not grieving my mom. When I'm running dogs, I'm not grieving all the stuff I've lost.
The comeback trail may be the toughest trail, but as long as you're moving ahead,
all right, straight ahead,
there's always hope.
Got the most beautiful trot I ever saw.
Shell has since decided that it will continue to sponsor Dee Dee Johnroe through the end of next year's Iditarod. The company says it's proud to sponsor her. Now, this comes after Shell's recent announcement it's ending its operations in Alaska. Since the early recovery efforts, the summer wildfires have sort of fallen off the radar screen. But with winter approaching, our guests today hope to get us back on track. Joining us, Krista Fee with the Willow Community Rebuild Project, and Alan Budal, who is head of Lutheran Social Services in Alaska. You know, one of the things we just saw was a contrast between Dee Dee Johnroe, who has insurance, and another family that didn't have insurance. So I imagine that you've prioritized those without insurance first in your efforts.
We're in our phase 1 efforts, and that's dealing with people who had full losses of their homes and did not have insurance. We will, in the near future, once we've handled those people, move on to people who were underinsured and had smaller losses.
Well, that is surprising that so many people would not be insured, especially, you know, living out on the edge of the wilderness. But what kinds of things has the Willow Recovery Group been able to do to help people?
Our primary objective at this point in time is rebuilding homes, but we are also addressing a lot of cleanup efforts and smaller needs, dog sleds, mushing equipment, winter clothing, things that are needed to get people back to work, sometimes tools, and things like that. Anything people need that is essential before winter comes.
Now, Bob Schlupak talked about his own personal experience with the recovery being a jigsaw puzzle. Now, what is it like for a community organization?
It's definitely a jigsaw puzzle. There are many organizations that need to be involved. There's a ton of activities going on. We have to have workers in all the right places, materials in all the right places, volunteers in all the right places, homeowners home when they're supposed to be to receive all of those things. It's definitely a lot of different pieces moving at all the time.
Well, Alan, what about, you know, the local involvement? I mean, I think Willow has definitely sort of taken the bull by the horns here.
Well, one of the things VOAD, which is the Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster, helped to establish a community based COAD is what we call it, and that's the Willow Recovery Team. And it's important to the resiliency of the community that they work together and rebuild their community one step at a time.
Well, Lutheran Social Services has also been working with people in the Card Street fire on the Kenai Peninsula. Can you give us an update on that?
Well, yes, we've been working through VOAD, again, working with the families who were burned out in the Card Street fire. Fortunately, it wasn't as many homes as in Willow, and so there's 3 families that have received help in rebuilding. One, the community really helped, one that VOAD and is helping with rebuild, and another one had insurance.
Well, Alan, you say that there's still a lot of needs to be met. Can you talk about some of them?
Well, you know, we're still very active in the construction, so we still have a need for building materials. Right now, you saw in the video earlier that we have a lot of burned out cars. So we are trying to get a lot of them moved as soon as possible.
That's costly.
It's very costly. It's price of steel is very low right now, so to get a salvage yard to come out and pick them up just doesn't happen. So we're having to pay for it, and thus we're trying to raise funds to help us get those cars moved.
Krista, you have worked very hard to kind of stretch the money that you've raised by getting people to donate. You know, I understand that there's even like an electrician that is donating his services to the rebuild project. What kind of help do you need now?
We are actually desperate for a plumber who's willing to donate his time and services. We have a fantastic electrician service, Renco Electric, and they have handled all of our homes free of charge. But we are definitely lacking in the plumbing, and we could also definitely use some framing, carpentry professionals.
And so what other kinds of ways could we help if we wanted to, in terms of sweat equity here?
People are always telling me that they don't have any skills, but sometimes on a job site, the most important people are those that just run boards back and forth between the cutter and the workers. So even if you have no skills whatsoever, you could still be highly useful.
So what have you learned through this yourself? I mean, just experiencing the fire from beginning to where we are now.
Probably the biggest thing is that there are gaps. And there are many services available. There's a lot in place, but between the community and those services, there are definitely some gaps in people knowing where to go for help and how to get that help. And sometimes even in what help is even available, because everything has a chunk that they take care of, but there are missing chunks in between that are neglected. And if you don't fit into a perfect little box, you may not be able to receive any services.
Well, Alan, you're the treasurer. You have to keep track of the money that's involved here. What lessons have you learned that might help us in future disasters?
Well, you know, one is to be prepared. And in the disaster talking, you know, we are reviewing our procedures from VOAD of how we reacted to this fire, and we learned something at each time.
But
so
how about all the different bureaucracies and trying to get the paperwork resolved?
You know, it is, and at our VOAD meetings, you know, the State of Alaska Emergency Management there, all the faith-based, we have the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and we talk about how to get prepared. The one thing that we can really look and need to do is to have a COAD, a community organized organization active in disasters in many communities around the state. Having that built first, it will make it a lot easier to respond to any long-term recovery efforts in any community throughout the state.
Now, we have talked about labor needed, but what about cash? And we have information here that we can put on the screen for you if you want to help. Why is having cash so important, and why will you be needing more of it as the months go on and years perhaps?
We're not just building homes. It goes so much deeper than that. A lot of people experience losses in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. They lost garages and vehicles, and everything that they own is gone. So in an attempt to try and put people back at least in a safe and comfortable living environment, we may have to continue looking at needs.
All right, well, I want to thank you very much, Krista, and we are going to continue this conversation online. There's much more to say. Up next, we'll get an update on the state's role in the recovery efforts. And remember when we visited the High family back in June? Their home had burned to the ground for the second time in a year. Now the family hopes that the worst is behind them, the best yet ahead.
The Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium provides comprehensive health services for Alaska Native and American Indian people across our state. In addition to world-class care at the Alaska Native Medical Center, our work delivers health services for rural Alaska. From cutting-edge technology for the best care possible, to modern construction of clean water systems and health clinics, to health training and outreach that honors our culture, our vision is that Alaska Native people are the healthiest people in the world.
All your favorite teams battle it out Sundays with the NFL on CBS. Brought to you locally by Ashley Furniture Home Store. Visit our showroom in Anchorage.
Recapping the day and preparing you for tomorrow. Watch KTVA 11 News Nightcast every night at 10. Brought to you in part by Kendall Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
We can see it. This day has never been closer. Today, thanks to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, hundreds of thousands with blood cancer are living a normal life. We're almost there. We're making cures happen. Join us.
Every day something's different, and I get really excited to report on stories in Alaska. I cover these stories. I need to be out there. I need to be experiencing all this stuff. I need to know. And Alaska is so big that you really have to get out there, because I think it's really important to meet people and cover their communities. There's just so many stories here that I could do a story for every day for the rest of my life and still have something new to tell in Alaska.
A deadline for loans to help people affected by the Sockeye fire is approaching. The Small Business Administration is giving low-interest loans of up to $2 million to businesses and nonprofits in need of assistance. The SBA is also loaning up to $200,000 to rebuild homes lost in the fire. Applications for economic injury must be in by May 26th of next year. The deadline, though, for loans to repair physical damages is coming up October 26th. Generally, what people have done is cobbled together a mix of programs, and others have no idea that help is available. And joining us now, Jeremy Zidek with the State Division of Emergency Services. Jeremy, the state has had a lot of disasters this year, it seems like it.
Yeah, in the last year we've had about 8 declared disasters. Normally we average a disaster about every 90 days, and that's going back to statehood. So this has been a very active time. Some of them are a little bit smaller, not massive events, and then we see some large disasters like the Sockeye fire.
And you know, you had 2 going on almost at the same time, the Sockeye and the Card fire. So what was the state able to do to help people?
Well, the state is one of the few states in the nation that has an individual assistance program. It's made up of 2 parts. The individual family grant that goes to help people pay for real property, personal property, medical, dental, funeral expenses, also transportation. And then we have a temporary housing program that can provide housing for homeowners up to 18 months and renters up to 3 months.
So those are good safety blankets for people to have. But to have an organization like the Willow Recovery Project or Recovery Team, how do you think they did, and how might it have been different without them?
Well, volunteer organizations are critical to disaster recovery. Our state programs and even federal programs have some funding limits to them, and there's a lot of paperwork that's required. These volunteer organizations are able to move very quickly, provide funding to folks very quickly, really establish that need and make sure that those people are getting the help that they need.
We're just about out of time, but what's the teachable moment in this year's sockeye and card fires?
Well, I think the recovery operation is always kind of a jigsaw, and there's a lot of different parts. It can be overwhelming for people to fill out all that paperwork and try to access all that recovery assistance. The other thing is to have insurance. That's really the best way to be made whole after a disaster.
And a lot of people found out they were underinsured that did. Well, I want to thank you, Jeremy Zidek, for this update on these wildfires this summer. Finally, it was as if lightning had struck twice in Willow. Justin and Jamie High had lost their home in an electrical fire just before Christmas last year. Then, just as they were finishing the roof of their new home, the sockeye fire raced through their homestead, destroying everything. Just days before, Jamie had learned she was pregnant.
It's just so overwhelming. You just do what you can do.
And Justin High has done a lot since June. His home is almost finished this week. The walls got a coat of paint. The Highs say that they're looking forward to moving in and moving on.
I think once baby gets here, it's going to be, you know, we're definitely starting a new chapter, and it's going to be an exciting chapter.
And Jamie and Justin are expecting their baby in late January, so they're about to come full circle. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today on the Comeback Trail. A thought to leave you with: the race is still a long ways from being finished. And everywhere we look in Alaska, there is no shortage of frontiers, no shortage of people willing to step in and make a difference. We'll see you next week.